It's Yours in Writing, where we discuss the ins and outs and highs and lows of being an indie author. You can find us on Instagram at yours_in_writing. You can find us on Twitter at yours_in_writing, on YouTube as Yours in Writing, and find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/yoursinwriting, where you'll find advanced episodes and advanced YouTube episodes. Our guest today is me. That's right, it's me, Brandy, because I am an indie author, and who better to be our first guest than myself? How can I expect other authors to come on and talk about themselves and their works if I haven't done it, right? So let's get started. I am the author of Life, Love, and Margaritas, the Withdrawal series, and there are 2 books in the series. One is Smuggled Love, Obsession and Addiction. The other is Double Crossed, Deception and Betrayal. And I also publish irregularly on medium.com. Most of that is nonfiction. However, I do have another Medium channel where I will be publishing erotic short stories exclusively. So stick around for the link. I first got into writing when I was a teenager. I was in high school and I was quite angsty, and I found that writing poetry, terrible poetry, but poetry nonetheless, I found that writing poetry was an outlet for me. So that's what I did. And then I started writing short stories. Anytime in English when we had an assignment that was a free write, that was my chance to, express myself in writing. So I'd always write a short story. About this time also was when the MTV TV show Daria came out, and I identified with her because she was also an angsty teenager and a writer. So a lot of my high school experience is similar to Daria, I think, except I was an athlete in high school and I had more than one friend. However, the writing part definitely is one of the things that I identified with Daria. My writing process is I am a pantser, or an exploratory writer, which means I don't generally go into my writing with a plan or an outline. I basically sit down and I just start typing, and whatever comes to mind either ends up on the page or it doesn't. And a lot of times it's something that I either take out of the story or leave in the story. Pantsing so far has gotten me by. I am tackling a new genre this time around for one of my works in progress. I'm tackling a cozy mystery. And cozy mysteries, I believe, have their own format, their own formula. And so I believe I'm going to try to go ahead and do some serious outlining, if not straight up plotting. I'm not very good at outlining because, again, the story comes to me as I write. I don't plan it out in advance. So it's going to be a learning experience for me to do some outlining, and if not, complete plotting. I already have the characters' names down. I have the characters who die pretty much mapped out. I know who's going to die. I know what their names are. I know what their occupation is. I'm not sure how they die yet, and I'm not sure who the killer is yet. I still have those things to discover, and I can either go with what I have, or I can try and suss out who the murderer is before I start writing. I'm going to see where my outline takes me. If I don't figure out who the murderer is beforehand, then I'm just going to go in and just do it. I enjoy doing it that way. I don't really have any writing rituals other than just to sit down and start writing. Occasionally, I'll have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea next to me. I do have a writing playlist that I have. I have a mellow writing playlist, which is mostly instrumental, and I have a magic writing playlist, which is the playlist that I used for NaNoWriMo 2020 because I was writing a YA fantasy story that uh, involved a lot of magic. I will be editing, or I will be working on my second draft of that story during April's Camp NaNoWriMo. So I am still going ahead with that story. I was going to shelve it for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue working on it, and I'm going to try and get it as polished as possible and get that ready for publishing. So that's exciting. I can't wait to do that. I am also working on a true crime book based on the city that I live in. There are a lot of unsolved crimes here in a city that is the population of about 13,000, and that's a lot of unsolved murders and disappearances. And so I feel that our city is one that needs its story told. There is a podcast on this city, but it isn't about what I am writing about. So stay tuned for that. My favorite part of novel writing is just watching my characters come to life in my head and imagining what could be and what could become of those characters. When I write, it's like a movie in my head, and I imagine the movie actually on the big screen. So when I'm writing, I'm watching a movie and putting the words on the page. I'm not sure if that is unique to me or not. I know that there are people who don't picture things in their heads, and that is a very odd phenomenon to me. I can't imagine anybody who is unable to imagine things. I know that there is a condition called aphantasia, which is the inability for a person to visualize pictures in their mind, and I could not imagine writing having aphantasia. What I see makes writing a lot easier for me, so I I always imagine what's happening on the page, and that's one of my favorite parts of novel writing. What I like about being an indie author is that I have complete control of what I write, which means that I set the price. I don't have to worry about someone taking a cut, except for Amazon, of course, because Amazon is a publication platform. So their cut is pretty easy. They take 20%, the author gets 80%, depending on certain circumstances. However, the flip side to being an indie author is that you have full control of everything. So not only do you not get an advance from a publisher, you have to come out of pocket for editing, for book cover design, for all of the ins and outs of the publishing process. Sometimes you even have to pay for things like readers, and you don't also have the support behind you for promotion. However, publishing houses now don't have the budgets that they used to have for promotion. So, a lot of the time, even if you do get commercially published with a publisher, you're on your own when it comes to promotion. And I think that right there is a complete drawback for being commercially published, because not only are you giving a cut to the publisher and to the agent, if you have an agent, they're not even backing you with promotion. They're not sending you on a book tour. They're not putting out promotional information. So you still have to pay for your own promotion. That's a major drawback. Another thing I like about being an indie author is that I don't have to worry about rejection. I mean, I do, because if readers don't like my work, that's one thing, but I don't have to worry about and waste time trying to get an agent or a publisher to like me enough, to like my writing enough, or to have the confidence in my writing enough to take me on as a client. Then have the potential for the agent to drop me as a client if my book doesn't sell the way they thought it would sell, or if the publisher doesn't think it would sell. There is a lot of nasty business going into publishing, being a commercially published author, and I'd rather avoid that. So being an indie author, I can avoid that, and I don't have to worry about someone else's approval. I didn't always know I wanted to be an indie author until after I finished writing Life, Love, and Margaritas. I didn't want to do the querying process, which is trouble in and of itself, because you have to write a summary and you have to send them your entire manuscript if they're interested. So you're sending self-addressed, stamped envelopes with your whole manuscript, and you're paying for tons and tons of postage, and you're doing all kinds of things that aren't writing or that aren't improving your writing. And I don't find that to be anything that I want to do. So the only exception that I have with this is with the true crime book that I'm writing. I would like to have an agent, and I would like to go with a publisher for this because it is nonfiction and because there's extensive research involved, and with an advance from a publication, it will be easier for me to conduct that research and to do any traveling that I need to do, and to provide meals if I'm taking a source out for lunch or what have you. It would just be a lot easier to do those things with an advance from a publisher. So if I'm writing nonfiction, I think a publisher is the way to go, because there are other things involved than with writing fiction. The biggest thing that I've learned from being an indie author is that it is not easy. It's not easy being a writer, period. Let's put those thoughts aside. Some people, for some reason, think being a writer is glamorous and that you spend all day, I don't know, at your computer creating literary works of art, that you're Shakespeare, or being a writer is stressful. You have people judging you because they think you don't have a real job. You have other people judging you because they don't think your writing is as good as theirs, or maybe your writing is better than theirs, so they're also judging you because they're not as good as you. There's a whole plethora of issues that come with being an author, period. Being an indie author, I think there are more, because if you're not someone like Joyce Carol Oates or Neil Gaiman or Stephen King or even Stephanie Meyer, you are basically, you're frowned upon, kind of. I mean, yes, there are people who admire you for the fact that you can write a book, but then there are other people who are like, well, I've never heard of you. Have you written anything I might have read? So there are a lot of, there are a lot of drawbacks. I enjoy writing, and I do it just for the joy of writing. So I don't have issues with the drawbacks, but there are, and if you're someone who's thinking of writing a book, just know that one of the greatest feelings is when you've finished your book, even your first draft. When you finish that first draft, it is such an amazing experience, because you can say you did it. And you can always do your first draft for yourself, put it away and never touch it again. Or if you want to publish it, then you can work on your second draft, or you can, turn it into a screenplay, or do whatever you will with it, because it's your work. It's your masterpiece. You took the time, the 30 days, if you did it during NaNoWriMo, or the months, or even the years, as it took me to finish Life, Love, and Margaritas. You put the time and you shed blood, sweat, and tears to create this work of art, because writing is art, and you took the time to do it. And it is one of the greatest feelings to have accomplished writing a book. So don't discount the writers, those of you who aren't writers. And readers, thank you. Thank you for reading our words. Thank you for taking the time to invest in reading our words, because it means a lot. And even if there's one reader who has read a book, it might not seem like that much, but it is greatly appreciated, because we write the words for people to read. And without someone reading it, did we actually write it? So that's it for my first episode of Yours in Writing, the podcast. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at yoursinwriting@gmail.com. I love, love, love reading letters, and I love reading letters on the podcast and answering questions. So if you have them, please send them. And until next week, this is Yours in Writing.